Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to your Build a Query for Marketing webcast today. Many of you have probably already, used the Build a Query feature before, but what we'll cover today is really looking at not just the basic process of building a query, but some of the little tips and tricks as well that you may not already know. We'll look at what happens when you save your queries and how to save those queries. The types of queries that you can create. So we'll look at some variations that you may not have known about. We'll talk about segmentation and how you can create more segmentation lists in your database. Something that a lot of you may or may not be aware of is that you can export and import in your database as well. So if you do need to update your database, do a big mass import, I can show you some tips around that too. The second part of today's webcast, we'll be looking at how to send marketing messages, the basic process of what happens when you do select the relevant queries you want to send to, and some tips around that as well. And then I have a little bit of a special surprise. We have an announcement to make today. So for all of you online, you'll be the first to hear it, which is really exciting. So we'll start with the not so exciting stuff, but important elements of queries. What are queries? What do we use them for? We use our queries to send out targeted marketing communication emails. Okay, so it allows us to segment our database and slice it up to send marketing communications to specific groups of people or users. So what kinds of queries might you need? It could be anything from, current active members. You're sending out a members-only newsletter, so you only want to send it to the current active members. It could be based on, state. So you've got an event in Queensland or New South Wales and you only wanted to send to those people in those states. Or, people have signed up to receive a newsletter and you just want to send it to those, all of the people that are registered to receive your newsletter. So there's lots of options there. So how do we build a query? We always have to hit the reset button first. So when you go to contacts, build a query, there's a little red button on the top right hand side, you can see. Always hit that reset button first. Okay, because what the system does actually saves your previous query's criteria. So if you went in and built a query and then saved it, it would automatically retain that information. So always hit that reset button. Then we can go through and select the criteria that we're basing this query on. So I'm going to go to the back end of my system and show you an example. So in your Association Online system, you can start with people in the top level menu, and then contacts. You have your list of contacts, and just underneath that is the build query option. Okay, I was in here before, so that's why it's gone straight to the segmentation tab. Okay, so always go to the reset button and then set your query criteria. So you can see there's a number of tabs across the top. This is for, I guess, people that are new to Association Online. Your general tab is your general contact information. Okay, you've got some contact database fields. So yours may look different to mine because you may have different fields in your system. So just be aware of that. You have a contact tab, so there's some extra information. So there might be 2 tabs of information in your database. So anything extra that you need in there. There is a company tab. There's usually not a lot of information in the company database at this point. In my particular company database, there's not a lot of data in there. So there's nothing too much there. You have the access tab. So this is where if they're a part of an access group, you can build a query based on those with a specific access group. Segmentation, I'm going to talk about that in more detail later, but this is where it comes from the segmentation system, and it allows you to, I guess, slice up your database into smaller groups. The membership tab is actually mostly used. It's one that is used a lot. Sorry, you do have the option to select specific membership types, active based on specific membership statuses as well. And you have an event management tab, so that is based on and connected to the events module. Okay, so I'm just going to build a basic query to start. So for example, I've got an event coming up in Queensland and I only want to send it to all of those people in Queensland. Okay, so I might do it based on state. So I'm going to select Queensland and then the run button at the bottom. And it brings up a list of those users or people in your database that have ticked Queensland as their state. I've got a few people there. And then underneath the list, you have a little link at the bottom to save your query. So you just click on Save Query and label it. Okay, whatever you want to title it as. So that's really the basic process of building a query. Select your criteria, run, and then save. Okay. So saved queries. Now you've saved your queries, you can go into the saved queries section to have a look at what queries you have listed there. You can export that file. You can export it into a spreadsheet or a TSV file. You can rename it, you can delete it, and you can run it again. So if I go into the back end again and I go to saved queries, I can see a list of all of the queries in my system. So there are two sections in the saved queries area. There is a section called My Queries and there's a section called Shared Queries. Now, shared queries doesn't necessarily mean that they're the only ones available for everyone to see. It's actually queries, really just queries that have been built by someone else, in another administrator. So if you have multiple administrators in your organization and they're all building their own queries, you will see them all in the list of shared queries, and you can see who the owner is of that query. Okay, so Margarita's created some other queries listed here. The other thing to be aware of when saving your queries is the naming convention. It's really important. We do have a number of clients I have seen that have hundreds of queries saved in their database. So it's very important that you're very clear about what is included, what criteria is this query based on. It's not just members. It could be current active members or expired members, or specifically. You have to be very specific. Because when you're in the marketing module and you're selecting the relevant query to send your message to, you need to know, what is in this query. So you can only read the label. You don't know what's included. So it's very important you label it and name it correctly. The other thing about the saved queries you need to know is that if you are a super administrator, you will be able to rename and delete other people's queries as well. So effectively, I can rename or I can delete Margarita's queries because I'm a super administrator. If you have just administrative access, it depends on your system setup, but it may be that you cannot rename or delete other people's queries, only your own. So that's one of the levels of the differences between being a super administrator and an administrator. Now, it is dependent on your site settings. Specifically, you might have it set up differently, but that's as a general rule, that's how we generally set it up. Okay. With your saved queries, what you can do from here is you can actually click on the queries to run it again and have a look at it again. Once you have saved a query, you shouldn't have to build it again. It automatically updates with the information in the database. You don't have to go and build a query every single time you want to send a marketing message. So, for example, current active members means that if someone's membership expires, they are automatically removed from that list. A new member joins, they're automatically added to that list. Okay, so current active members, you don't have to build it again. It will auto-update. But what you can do from here is you can click on the Run button and see the list and go, okay, here's my list of current active members. Okay, and tomorrow it may look different because Donald Duck could have expired, so he's not going to be on that list anymore. When you've run the query, and this is a tip that many of you may not know, you can actually go back to build a query. So you click on Run, see your list of results, go back to build a query. So I've just clicked on build query again, and you can actually go and see what the criteria was for that query. So if you want to know, you go into a query and you say, well, what was the criteria? What was this based on? you can actually run it, click on build query, and look, here it is. So this criteria is members. We've selected members and they're active. And it's all membership types. Okay, so that's what this query was based on. So that's a little tip for you. Okay, to rerun a query and go and see the criteria if you need to. I'm going to show you a couple of other samples of queries, and we'll just go through a couple of the common queries that we might run. So I'll hit the reset button first. I've often done it and forgotten to hit the reset button and the queries come out incorrectly. So always hit the reset button. So a common one that we do run is, you want to run current active members. So by default, all contacts is always selected when you first reset your query. Okay, so you can do it based on members or not members. So those that are not a member, you might want to do a membership drive. So you can say anyone that's not a member that's on our database, let's send them a message. Or members that have expired, so you want to, re-engage them if possible. Okay, or you can base it on specific membership types as well. Okay. You can even, and some of you may not know this, that there is a way to your archived memberships you can build a query on them as well. So if you do have some archived memberships, they've been archived after a year of expiry, you may go, oh, let's do a membership drive to the archived memberships as well. The other one I really like is in event management. Under event management, it's not just, you're saying, let's e-market directly to all of the people that registered for one event. You can actually, do it based on the other status of that they're not registered for the event. This is quite common. I don't know about you guys, but when I register for an event, I'm like, okay, great, I'm registered now. I don't need to receive any more emails. And they keep emailing me, don't forget to register, don't forget to register. I think, oh, I've already registered, stop emailing me. It happens quite a bit. So something you can do is go, okay, we need to send out another message to, drive some more registrations for our events. So you can select not registered for an event and then select the relevant event and add. So we're going to email all of those people, members that are not yet registered for awesome training, as an example. And you can do it based on event attendance as well. Attended or did not attend. Okay, there's an option too. So there's some types of queries that you can run. So it'd be worth after training today, after this webcast, if you guys want to go into your system specifically and go and have a look at your setup and what what some of the queries are that you have and what some of the queries are that you might want to still build. So I mentioned segmentation earlier as well. What is segmentation? So it is a way for you to slice your database up into smaller pieces. So if you think of your database as like a cake, a full cake, a big, beautiful round chocolate cake or something like that, and you need to slice it up and then mark it directly to each of those different slices. Okay, so segmentation is a way for you to break up your database into other groups that aren't already in there. So, not necessarily members or not necessarily from events, not necessarily based on state. It's anything else. I often have seen it used for things like sponsors or exhibitors, or you want to market directly to a different kind of group. Now, in the segmentation section, you may already see that there are some categories set up called conference, events, or surveys. What our system does, we automatically have a segmentation that is created from those modules. So from every conference module, from every events module, or your surveys module, it automatically creates a segment. And we'll call them sub-segments. Okay. So for example, you create an event or add an event to your database, event management system, and someone's registered for that event, they're automatically added to that segmentation. Okay, it's all done automatically. However, you can create your own segments. Okay, so it looks like categories, a list of categories like in Website CMS with a vertical drop down. And so you can then create other categories and other segmentations. So I'll show you how that works. So in the contact section under setup, there's a section called segmentation. Okay, so for example, under events, they automatically created those segments when I created the event. So it's like it's linked to the events module or the surveys module. Okay, so anytime I create a new survey, it's automatically linked, and anybody that registers or completes that survey are added to that segmentation automatically. But you can create new ones. So there's underneath the vertical drop-down list, there's an option to select new segment. And all you need to do is title it. Okay, so I might call this one sponsors. Okay, and you can click on it and even create a sub-segment. Okay, so my parent segment is sponsors and my sub-segment will be sponsors for 2017. You might have different ones at different years. So then to add people to that segment, you could say, oh, just pick someone's profile, Count Dracula, go to the segmentation tab, and here it is. We're going to say he's a sponsor for 2017. Okay, so that's fine. That's a great way you can add people to those segmentations. However, it's good if you've only got 10 people that you need to add and you can manually go and do it. It doesn't take very long. But what if you want to add hundreds of people to a segment? You create a new segmentation, you want to add hundreds of people to it. What do we do? So that's where we use the export-import functionality. So some people also build queries as a way to run a report or to update a group of people in their database and then import them back into it. There's a couple of things you need to be aware of if you are going to do an export-import. The first one is to always back up your database first, just in case, because you never know what's going to happen. So we always run a full export, save it, just as a backup. So you're probably going, well, how do I do that? All right, so we can go to the import-export section. Okay, we're not importing yet, we're going to export. Okay, we're going to export all of our contacts into a CSV for Excel. I'm not going to do it all today. I'm just going to show you roughly like how you do it and where you go. Always run it in background for a full export because you will have lots of data in there. And if you run it in your browser, if you click run in browser, it will take a long time to load and it will slow your system down. So run it in the background. The system will send you an email to say it's ready for viewing, and it'll give you the link to open the spreadsheet. Okay, which you can then save. So the way to run your full export, just do the multi-select button. Just tick that multi-select button, or click on it, and it will select all of the fields, all of your fields, and then click Run Export at the bottom. Okay. So do that, save it, or update, save it first, and then do your update that you need to before you do your import. So with your import, let's say I've got an example of a spreadsheet, little picture of a spreadsheet on here. Let's say you need to add a few people to the sponsors list for the segmentation. Okay, under the segmentation field, you always make sure you keep any original segments in the column as well, because if you override them, they will no longer be ticked against that segmentation. Okay, so you just add the new segmentation at the end. It's comma separated. Okay, so you just comma separate and then add the new segmentation. Okay, then you can come back and then click on import and upload it and import it. Now, if you're not sure about it or you're nervous about it, always contact our support team, raise a help desk ticket, say I'm going to need some help running this import, just making sure it's correct. That's absolutely fine to do as well. Beautiful. Okay, so great. We've got some queries built. We're ready to send to groups of users from the database. What do we do with that now? So we get ready to send our marketing message. Okay, so I'm going to go in the back end and have a look at one. Okay, we've got our saved queries. We go to marketing. I've got a member newsletter that I want to send out for this month. Okay, I know many of you have done this before, but it's just a good little refresher. When I'm ready to send my marketing message, I go to the recipients tab. Okay, so I'm happy with the content. Let's go and choose who we're sending it to. Okay, with the queries list, there's always an all up the top, so which means it's going to send to all of your database. Okay, or you've got specific queries labeled contacts. So if it's coming from your contact database, it'll have contacts and then your query name and who the owner of that query is. So the administrator, who's the one that built that query, which I find really handy, especially if you work in an organization with multiple administrators and you might want to ask them a question about it. You know who it belongs to. This is why I was talking about earlier when you save your queries, what naming convention you're going to use, because you can see, you don't know exactly what's this query built on from here. So you need to know, how to name it correctly and what that means. So I'm going to send my member newsletter to all the current active members. And then at the bottom, I've actually built a staff query as well with my name. It's just for me. Sorry, everybody else at ASI. I'm only going to get this today. Okay, and then you've got your lovely orange button that you can view your recipients. We don't have many recipients in there at the moment, but with yours, you might have hundreds, you might have thousands in the recipient list. Now, something to be aware of that is also new in our system is that if anyone has unsubscribed to receive marketing communications, they will no longer display in this recipient list. About a month ago and before that, it used to be that they would still display in the recipient list because they were part of that query, but when the system tried to send the message, they wouldn't be in the sent list, wouldn't be in the delivery log. So there would be a discrepancy between the recipient list and the delivery log because they had unsubscribed. Okay, but now they don't even display in the recipient list because they're basically deemed as, well, they're not part of the marketing module because they've unsubscribed. Okay, so that's my little tips. Now, when you go to send your message, and you either send now, click send, or specify your date and time and queue for delivery. What the system does by default, it actually sends to 1,000, maximum of 1,000 users at one time, and every 5 minutes. So we have a default setting. Yours may be slightly different depending on what your settings are. But generally every 5 minutes, the system will send 1,000 messages. So if you have it set for, to send 10,000 messages, it will take a little bit of time. It's not going to send all at once. And the reason for that is so that it doesn't slow our servers down, because it will slow a lot of sites down in that case. We don't want that to happen. So if you have two people in one office and one person gets the message and 10 minutes later another person then gets the email, yeah, don't worry. It still gets through. It just might take a bit longer. Okay, so that is building a query and sending your marketing message. Now, with that in mind, and some of you may be asking that question, what is the special surprise? I have a little announcement to make. We have a new release as of today. Yay, Subscription Manager is here. It's finally here. We've been working on this for months, probably longer than that. So we do have our new feature, Subscription Manager, available for you now. What is it? Some of you may go, well, what does that mean? So it means that members can choose from a list of subscriptions that administrators set up. They can choose which marketing communications they want to subscribe to. So currently in most of your systems, or almost all of them, they can receive emails or they can't receive emails. There's one choice, that's it. That doesn't work for a lot of people because they might want to receive emails for, newsletters, but they don't want to receive policy information, or they want to receive events. They want to know what events are coming up, but they don't want to get all the training information. There might be different subscriptions that they want to receive information on. So what we can do is actually set it up so they can choose which subscriptions to subscribe to. I'm going to get tongue-tied saying that all day. And they can opt in and out at any time, which is awesome. So how does that work in Association Online? What happens is we will install the feature for you on your request. So when you're ready to get it, you let us know and we'll install it for you. Then you can start creating your subscriptions. It will be stored under the marketing section in your system. Whatever marketing you have, eMarketing, news, and subscriptions will be at the bottom. So that's what it will be called. So in my system under marketing, it's right down the bottom here. Okay, subscriptions, and you will have one subscription type listed. You know, whatever wording you've put in around it before, receive marketing emails or receive emails, whatever it might be. Okay, so you can add subscriptions here by just clicking on the plus sign. You know, receive monthly newsletters. Just get rid of that dot. Is it optional? Yes. Okay, it's optional. They can opt in, they can opt out at any time. Okay, you can create as many as you want, as many subscriptions as you want. What this does, it automatically updates that field, receive emails. Let me show you on the front end. So for example, in say an update my details form, okay, I might have email subscriptions and the two options there now. Okay, when I had one, the only receive marketing emails would display. So another one, receive event updates. Okay, I'll add another one, refresh my form. And now it's displayed at the bottom there as well. Okay, so all of the optional subscriptions will display in the field and any of the forms on your site. Okay, so that receive email field will be there. So when I say optional, it also means that you can also create mandatory subscriptions for as a member benefit. So obviously for legal reasons, you can't make mandatory subscriptions for everyone. You can't say you must be subscribed to this. But what it allows us to do is that as a member benefit, you can say in your membership sign up, you know, as a benefit of your membership, you will receive our member only communication. Okay, so you can member only communication. So, and I'll deselect optional, and then there's an unsubscribe reason field displayed. Okay, which you can put in some content. You can create your own content in here. You are not able to unsubscribe. They can't unsubscribe to a mandatory subscription when they're an active member. Okay, it's part of their membership. So you must put some content in around that, and I'm happy to talk to you further about how that would work. But you can tell them, you know, you can't unsubscribe as this is a member only benefit. Whatever you want to say there. And what that means is if I go into the members section, if I choose a membership type, I can choose which membership type that this particular subscription will suit. Okay, so it's under the member benefits tab. Now there's a member subscriptions available. Okay, that will only display if you have a mandatory subscription listed, and you can say yes. So anyone that's an active status, a full member, they will receive their member only communication. Okay. So that is the basics of the creating optional and mandatory subscriptions. So how do users select those subscription options? I just showed you a little bit on the front end, but adding the field or making sure that field is on all your forms on your website. So your membership sign-up forms, your renewal forms, your event registration forms, update details forms, anywhere that you've asked them to tick that receive emails box, making sure it's all available for them. They can tick them, they can select them, deselect them at any point, whenever they're filling in an online form. But also when they do receive a marketing email, they can also have an unsubscribe button, which I'll tell you about in a moment. When you're ready to send your marketing messages, you can build your query as per normal, so based on your specific conditions, based on state or membership type or whatever. Go to your marketing message, and on the campaign tab, you will then see this little field called subscriptions. Okay, so you can select which subscription types will receive this email. Okay, so I'll show you that in the back end. Okay, so if I went back into my newsletter and in the campaign tab, now my subscription field is displaying, and I can say, all right, we want anybody that wants to receive marketing emails and monthly newsletters to receive this message. Okay, so anyone in there that has selected either of those options will receive it. You do need to make sure you have at least one ticked, otherwise it won't send at all. So just a little tip there as well. One of them has to be ticked. The other thing is you will not see it. If you go into your system now and you go, where's that subscription field? It won't display unless you have more than one subscription option. So at the moment, the system's going, well, where are we sending it to? Well, there's only one option. So it's automatically sending it to those with that box ticked. Okay, but for future, when you do have multiple subscriptions, you can select which ones it's relevant for. Okay. And then how do members unsubscribe from certain subscriptions? So as I mentioned, they can, when they're filling in any forms, they can select and deselect, or when they receive that marketing communication, when they click on the unsubscribe link, it takes them to this Manage My Subscriptions page. Okay, and it'll have a list, here's a list of the subscription groups. You've subscribed, oh, that word is getting to me now. You are subscribed to the groups that are ticked. Okay, you can, and then it will say, which one do you want to unsubscribe to. Underneath that, you can see that if I didn't have the member benefit subscription, it would not display. But at the moment, it's telling me that I'm part of this member benefit subscription. I can't unsubscribe. Okay, and then to update your subscription so they can do that. So I don't know who's excited about that, but I know a number of clients have been asking for it for quite a while. Probably some of you that are online. So hopefully, that will help you guys out a lot with your member engagement in your system too. So how do we get it? How do you get it? The first step we want you to do is create a help desk ticket. You need to tell us when you're ready to have it installed. So you might need some time to think about what types of subscriptions you need and so on. So the support team will install it and then give you some instructions. I have an instruction manual. I'll just get it for you and show you. Where did I put it? It's up here. Okay, so I have a subscription manager manual. It's only a 9-page manual. It's fairly short. It's very simple to use. Okay, so they'll send that to you and provide you instructions that way. The manual is also now available in our support centre, so you can have a look at it before you decide to get it or not. It's sitting in the featured topics and the optional components section. So I'll show you that now as well. Okay, so I'm going to go into my little Lifebuoy and go to the support centre. Oh, not logged in. Sorry, I should have had that organised beforehand. I'll just log in, bear with me. Let's refresh. Here we go. So it's sitting under optional components because it isn't a module in its own, it's a component, and it's also in featured topics because it is a new feature. Okay, subscription manager. Okay, and there's the link to the manual in there. So have a look through that, open up the manual, have a little browse through, and so go, okay, well, this would suit what we're looking for. Contact help desk and they'll install it for you. Okay, so that's everything I needed to cover today. So we've looked at the basic process of building a query, how to save your queries and rerun them to see what criteria they're based on. We've looked at types of queries you can build. We've talked about segmentation, and then a little bit about importing and exporting and being a bit careful about that. And then what happens when you send those marketing messages. And finally, we finished with the new release of our subscription manager feature. So before we get to questions, our next webcasts are on the 26th of November. We are looking at the auto renewal process. So it's not a training per se, it's more of an overview of how auto renewal works. So if those that already have it want a refresher, or those that are, oh, what is that about? How do I, how can that benefit us? Come along to that session. And then because of Christmas, we're doing this one a little bit earlier. On the 12th of December, we're going to look at event registration management. So managing those registrations, cancellations, and seating, and printing out name tags and so on. Before I do head to questions as well, I do want to let you know that under our support centre as well, I have been saving our recorded webcasts. So if you do have people that want to view it, previous webcasts, come in and have a look. It's under the section called webcasts. So we have a list of our upcoming webcasts and links to register. Okay, so that's where you'll find the registration options. And then underneath that, the previous webcast that we ran. Okay, the link to the video. Okay, so that's everything. Marla, I'll open up to questions now.